Maybe not every single person can relate to this, but most people have had at least one, if not more, experiences where somehow, for some reason, you got caught in a downpour that you weren't expecting, where you were somewhere and you didn't have a raincoat, you didn't have an umbrella, and it started raining so hard that you began to move as fast as you could to get to wherever it was you were trying to go, to get out of the rain or find somewhere, even if it wasn't your ultimate destination, but just trying to find a place to get out from underneath the rain. But it was raining so hard that you began to get soaked before you were able to find shelter. And you ended up getting so soaked that even though you had been running, moving as fast as you could, you ended up getting so soaked that you just stopped running. And you just slow down and you walk because you realize that you can't get any wetter. It doesn't matter anymore. You are so soaking wet that there's no point in trying to save yourself. You just give in. You just give up. You just start walking. And you're fine with getting to wherever you're going to get whenever you get there, because it doesn't matter anymore how fast you move because you're soaked. When we were in high school or junior high, wherever you were, you probably learned, I know I learned, about a scientific term called the saturation point. Saturation point is when you have a piece of some kind of matter, some type of material, some matter, and it has an ability within its set of molecules and the way that it is designed, depending upon the substance, it has X amount of capacity to hold within itself a certain amount of fluid. And what happens is once every single space within that piece of matter is occupied by the molecules of the fluid, at some point, it will reach its full capacity, and then one of two things will happen. Either, number one, when a new water molecule is introduced, or the molecule of some other fluid is introduced to that piece of matter, either that water molecule will be rejected and will not be able to enter into that piece of matter, or if that fluid molecule does enter into that piece of matter, then another fluid molecule that was already in that piece of matter must be ejected out of that piece of matter, because there is literally no more room. There is no more space for any more fluid to enter into that piece of matter. It is saturated. It has reached its saturation point. Similarly, you may have gotten so full, you've eaten so much had a big Thanksgiving dinner, you've had a big Christmas dinner, whatever it is, and then you find out that your child or your niece or your nephew says, Uncle Ron, I made you a special cookie. Your wife said, honey, I made this special pie. You know, I want you to eat a piece of pie. I want you to eat this special cookie, whatever it is. And you realize that your stomach is so full that you can't eat another piece of pie. You cannot eat the cookie because you realize that if you force anything else into your mouth and down your throat into your stomach, you may very well regurgitate it because there is literally no more space to absorb any new thing into that space. Somebody right now who's listening to this, you're at your saturation point with problems, with issues, with stressful circumstances, with bad news, with difficulties. And when new circumstances arise or the next set of bad news comes, or the next thing that's painful arrives, and you see it, or you hear about it, or it is told to you, or it is expressed to you, you are at your saturation point and you're not able to receive any more beyond what you're already trying to deal with. You can't swallow another bite of bad news because you are full of what you're already trying to digest. People are having a hard time understanding why it seems like you're cold, why it seems like you're not responding in the way that they expected you to. It seems like you don't care the way that they thought you would care. And it's not that you don't care. It's that you've reached a saturation point where you can't process anything else right now. You can't absorb anything else right now. It's almost like somebody, says something to you and it seems to them like what they said to you is going in one ear and out the other. Your financial situation might be so bad and you're trying to digest everything that you're going through, and then your husband comes home or your wife comes home and says that the car is broken down. And they had to call the tow truck and it's going to be $500 to fix the car. And you're numb because you can't digest that, because you are already chewing on and trying to digest all of the other issues that you're facing, such that you stare almost blank-faced. You can't absorb that. You can't handle that. It's a saturation point. Your child comes to you and says something that's extremely difficult, and you can't do what you want to do with it. You can't respond the way you want to respond to it. Because you're at your saturation point. Now, what happens when we reach our saturation point is one of two things. We use a phrase quite often where when we feel like we're at our saturation point, sometimes we use the phrase, or we see that someone else is at their saturation point, and we use the phrase, I feel like I'm about to blow a fuse. Or, we say concerning someone else, I think so-and-so is about to blow a fuse. And what we mean when we say that is, I think I'm about to go off. I think I'm about to go crazy. I think I'm about to explode on somebody. I think I'm about to respond in a very negative and explosive way because I've reached my limit. But we don't really understand or think about what it really means to blow a fuse. What I want to say to somebody who's listening to this is, you actually do want to blow a fuse. It's good to blow a fuse. Another quick science lesson, talk about the saturation point. But the purpose of a fuse, if you have ever blown a fuse in your house or blown a fuse in your car, the purpose of a fuse is that when you have an electrical circuit, you have electrical circuitry throughout your house, electrical circuitry throughout your car, electrical circuitry inside of your washing machine and inside of your drying machine. And when that electrical circuitry was put into place by law and by necessity and for safety reasons, with all of that electrical circuitry, there were fuses installed throughout all of those electrical circuits. And the purpose of a fuse is that in any given electrical circuit, each of the physical wires that make up that circuit are designed to handle X amount of electrical current. They have a certain degree of capacity that allows them to have a current of electricity flowing through them to a certain degree. And if that current of electricity becomes too great, or it is flowing at too high of a level, then what can happen is that electrical circuit can and will overheat. And that's when you'll get a fire or an explosion. What a fuse does, the job of a fuse, is to be within the electrical circuit, and the fuse says, hey, this current is starting to get to be too much. There's too much flowing through this circuit. There's too much electricity. There's too much coming at me. And because it is overflowing the capacity that I'm designed to handle, I am going to break. I'm going to blow. Now, what happens when the fuse blows? You don't get an explosion. You don't get a fire. You don't get a big dramatic thing that happens. What you actually get is you get the opposite. When a fuse blows, everything stops. When a fuse blows, everything goes dark. When a fuse blows, all the noise of the radio and all the noise of the TV and all the noise of all the distractions stop. When a fuse blows, it gets quiet. When a fuse blows, it actually gets a little bit more peaceful than what it was before the fuse blew. When a fuse blows, everything slows down and quiets down and shuts down. Not the opposite. It's when we don't have a fuse to blow. When there's no fuse in place and the capacity continues to be pushed and pushed and pushed and overtaxed and overtaxed and overtaxed, then you're going to get a fire. Then you're going to get an explosion. Then you're going to get damage. Something loud is going to happen. You're going to hear the crinkling and sounds of sparks and fire, because there is no fuse to blow and shut all this down. You want to have a fuse. And when you reach your saturation point, when your circuit is being taxed beyond its capacity, you want a fuse. And not only do you want a fuse, when your circuitry is getting overtaxed, it's a good thing if your fuse blows. When a fuse blows, quote unquote, blows, the fuse literally, it breaks. It's designed to break. It's designed to break under stress. There is a literal piece of wire inside the fuse that connects the other two ends of the circuit. And that fuse is holding the circuit together. And when it's too much coming through the circuit, that piece of wire inside the fuse is smart enough to say, hey, all the rest of this wiring is going to keep trying and trying and trying and trying to handle all of this current that it's not designed to handle. It's going to keep trying to handle it. It's going to keep trying to, flow this electricity through, even though it's not designed to handle that much. But I'm a fuse, and I'm smart enough to know that when the current becomes more than what I am supposed to be able to bear, I just snap. I just break in half. I just cut the current. I just say, no more of this. I just say, stop it. I just say, quit. I just say, enough. And I shut everything down. It's good to have a fuse. And when you reach a saturation point, it's good for that fuse to blow. And people don't understand it. It's hard for people to know what's going on when your fuse blows. They think that you don't care because your fuse is blown. They think that you're not concerned about what's going on because your fuse is blown. But actually, something has happened on your behalf that's going to help you in the long run. Because if your fuse didn't blow, you'll burn out. If your fuse doesn't blow, there might be a fire. If your fuse doesn't blow, there might be an explosion. I want to read a passage of scripture. It's a familiar passage. It's from 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. It's one that you hear all the time. But it says that no temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. You haven't gone through any kind of trial or any kind of tribulation that other people don't know about or have gone through. But God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted or tested or go through trials and tribulation beyond your ability. God is faithful to not allow a current to flow through your wiring that is beyond your capacity. But he will, with that temptation, provide a way of escape so that you're able to endure it. God is faithful. He will not allow your circuitry to be overrun by a current that is too much for it, but he will, with that overwhelming current that your circuitry is not capable of handling, provide a fuse so that your circuitry will not be damaged. What do you do when you blow a fuse? Again, I just want to say it's better to blow a fuse than to try to keep fighting and fighting and fighting and handling that current. Handle that current, handle that current, handle that current. And it's beyond your capacity, and you end up having a fire. You end up saying something you shouldn't say. You end up going somewhere and doing something to somebody that you shouldn't do. You end up in some situation where you have an explosion out of your mouth that you wish that you didn't have, or you have an explosion out of your in your actions that you wish you didn't have, because you didn't have a fuse in place that you just allow to blow and shut everything down. When you blow a fuse, when you shut down, what do? First of all, you won't stay down. A fuse is not designed to recognize that there's too much capacity on your circuitry and then shut down, and then that's it, and your house is just dark forever. It's not designed to break and then you'll never listen to the radio again. It's not designed for the fuse to break and you never turn on your computer again. The fuse is designed to break, to allow the circuitry to rest, to allow the circuitry to cool down because it got too hot, and to give you an opportunity to fix and repair the line. To say, I am trying to operate something. I plugged a drill into the wall that required more current than what the wiring inside the wall was able to handle when I plug in that drill. Or when I have too many things plugged in at the same time. Sometimes you blow a fuse when you have the dryer on and you're running the dishwasher and you're running the vacuum cleaner and you're ironing clothes and you got 4 TVs on and you're using the computer and you got all the lights on and when the fuse blows, it gives you a chance to say, wait a minute, I was able to save my circuitry without starting a fire. And also gives me a moment of time to say, when I replace this fuse, when I get my circuitry back in action, I can't do that anymore. When I get my circuitry back in action, I can't have the iron on and the washing machine on and the vacuum cleaner on and the dishwasher on and this on and that on. I'm recognizing that my wiring doesn't have enough capacity for all those things. So the fuse being blown spared me and saved me from going crazy. It spared me and saved me from exploding. It spared me and saved me from saying something or doing something that was just off the hook, off the chain. It spared me of that, but it also gives me an opportunity that before I get a new fuse put in place, I can give some thought to how much capacity I actually have and make sure that in the future, I don't overtax it. So what do you do after your fuse blows? But before the Lord installs a new fuse, pats you on the back and tells you, go ahead and get back in the game. I'm going to give you a new fuse. I'm going to repair the circuit. I have squeezed some of the fluid out of you so that now you have more capacity again to receive more. The next piece of bad news that comes, you will be able to process it. You'll be able to deal with it. What do you do in the meantime? What do you do between the time that your fuse blows and before God installs a new one and tells you to get back into the game? I just want to share this with you real quick, and then that's going to be it. The other day, I didn't really see or know or understand which passage of scripture the Lord was really speaking to me from. But I just had a strong inclination because my fuse was blown. And I just shut down. I was at a saturation point where there's a lot of things going on in my family right now. There's things happening with my wife, and there are things happening with my children, and there are things happening with our finances. There are things happening that are so difficult right now. that I felt like my circuitry is just taxed. I cannot handle anymore. And the next thing that somebody says to me that's bad news, either I am going to go crazy and a fire is going to start in my circuitry, or thank God I blew a fuse. And my fuse blew. I praise God for that. I just shut down. All the lights went out. All the music stopped. All the noise stopped. And I wasn't able to receive any more bad news, but I wasn't able either to respond to new bad news in a negative way because I just couldn't receive it. My fuse was blown. Everything was dark. And so here's what I did. This is what I felt like the Lord was telling me to do. There's a place near where I work. It's a park. And I go there all the time, and I walk through the park and I pray at lunchtime. And it's my time to spend with the Lord. And I just pray and I think about all these things, and I ask him for things, and I let him know that I love him and that I want to be with him and that I want to be on his side. And I ask him to mold me and shape me and make me. But when my fuse was blown, what I felt like the Lord was telling me, when I was at that point where you could tell me more bad news if you want, but I'm really not hearing it. I can't absorb it. I'm not responding to it. I'm not reacting to it. You know, my wife was saying, honey, you know, this and this is happening or about to happen. And I'm just numb. I want to care, but I just don't have any more capacity. My child is saying, Dad, you know, this and this is happening. And I want to care more than what it looks like I'm caring, but I can't. I don't have the capacity. My fuse was blown. And so I went to the park at lunchtime, and I felt like the Lord was saying to me, don't ask me for anything. Let's not talk about anything. Don't think about anything. All these other problems that you had already absorbed up to your saturation point, all of that fluid that you had absorbed that was already inside of you. I know you couldn't handle any more, but you were holding on to what was already there that you already had absorbed. And you were praying about it, and you were talking about it, and you were asking me to fix it, and you were asking for grace and strength to handle it. You were asking me for wisdom on how to deal with it. We were talking about all of that fluid that you already absorbed. But now that your fuse is blown, we're not going to talk about any of that. You're not going to ask me for anything. You're not going to ask me for any more help. You're not going to ask me for any more blessing. You're not going to ask me for any more grace to handle your issues and your problems. You're not going to ask me for anything. All you're going to do is just know that I am, and that I'm a rewarder of them who diligently seek me. You're not even going to ask me what I'm going to reward you with. You're not going to ask me about what the reward will be. All you need to think about is the fact that I exist, that I'm here, and that I'm concerned about you, and what you do matters to me, and I will recompense what you do or don't do. All I want you to do is know that I'm here, that I exist, and I continue to love you, consider you, and evaluate you. Don't ask me for anything. And I believe that it was the Lord speaking to me because it was coming from inside of me to say, I'm not interested in anything. I'm not interested right now in my problems being solved. I'm not interested in all of this fluid that I've been holding on to. I'm not interested in any resolutions to my issues. All I'm concerned about is just making sure that I know, that I believe you're there. And regardless of what you do or don't do, Lord, all I want to do is make sure that I believe that you care. I'm not talking about what you will do in response to the fact that you care. I'm not talking about what you will do or not do for me or in me or through me. I'm not concerned with what blessings you will bless me with. I don't care. All I want to know and make sure that I'm acknowledging is that you are there, and that what I do matters to you, and that you, in your way, in your time, whatever it is, will respond to me at some point in some way. Because I will have fainted unless I believe to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. I just want to give you this passage of scripture because I think it typifies what I was experiencing while my fuse was blown. It's Psalm 46. It says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. The nations rage, the kingdoms totter. He utters his voice. The earth melts. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come, behold the works of the Lord, how he has brought desolations on earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire. And then the Lord says in verse 10, he says, just be still. Your fuse is blown. Just be still. I haven't put in a new fuse yet. Your circuitry has been overrun by a current that it cannot handle. Therefore, I made a way of escape. I had installed a fuse so that you will not be tempted above your capacity. That's why your fuse is blown. That's a part of my promise. I said, I will not allow you to be tried and tempted beyond what your circuitry can handle. That's why your fuse blew. So while your fuse is blown, be still and just know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. God bless you.